This movie is about the new form dialog in WinDoor 16, and it will begin with an overview and then have a series of other sections after that, and the times that these other sections begin are indicated here, and you can use this as a guide to use the controls at the bottom of the movie to scrub through to a particular section if you don't want to watch the whole movie. Alright, let's begin the movie by going to the design layer that has some WinDoor objects on it, and you can see them here. Now, there are two ways to access the form dialog. We can select a WinDoor object and simply come up to the object info palette and click the form button. Alternatively, you can simply double click a WinDoor object and the dialog is going to open like this. I'll just center that a little bit. Alright, at the top here we have a custom head setting, so here we can add curved, semicircular, sloping and gable type heads. Here we have the main controls that allow you to divide the unit up into up to 6 width and 6 height divisions, set overall sizes. Here you can choose what is going to populate each of the various openings within the unit. The bottom row can have doors, the bottom or top rows can have windows as well. There are some additional controls at the bottom here for controlling doors and sash widths and so on. Over here we have a 3D preview. The 3D preview defaults to the outside, but you can set it to the inside or an isometric view. You can also control the rendering mode. At the bottom here we have the 2D preview. There are some buttons on the side here, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. So that's an overview of what the dialog can do. And if I just close it now by clicking OK and maybe look at a more complex unit, and we'll double click this unit here. So here you can see that we've got a custom head that's been set here with a radius of 4 meters and a spring height of 30 on the left and 400 on the right. And we've got a fixed glass, awning hung, fixed glass, so that will match what we're seeing here, fixed glass, awning hung, fixed glass, and double hung on the left, hinged right and double hung, and whether or not the door has a threshold and so on. So this is where you can control the various options, and you can then check how they look here. Down here you can choose, when there's multiple height divisions, which of the height divisions you're going to see in the 2D preview. Sometimes you'll have to click this button here or this one here to, you can see the difference here, to get this to refresh. You will always see the doors in this preview. It's only the sashes that you can control, and you'll see by clicking here we're seeing a fixed glass on the sides and a fixed sash in the middle, and then back here we're getting the double hung sashes on either side. So that is basically the layout of the form dialog, and in the subsequent parts of this movie we'll look at what the various parts do in more detail. I guess the primary aim of the form dialog is to create combination units of doors and windows, or different types of windows, and let's jump straight in and look at how we might do that. So again, we'll switch to our layer that has some units on it, and we'll begin by selecting this door, which is just a single glazed door. You can see over here in the object info palette. Let's double click that, and let's say for argument's sake that what we want to do here is to put a window on either side of this unit. So we can do that by first setting the number of width divisions, and for this we'll need 3 width divisions, so we'll go 3. And here I can put in an overall width. Let's say I wanted the overall width to be 2 meters. And if I want to divide this up equally, I can click this Set Equal Width Divisions button here, and that will divide these up equally so that this overall width is maintained, with these 3 being as equal as possible. Now, in fact, here I might want to put the door in the middle and have and vary these a little bit. So let's actually go ahead and do that and say, look, this one I actually want to be actually let's make it 600, which is about 2 feet, and we'll make this a standard door, 820, which is about 2 foot 8, and another 600 here, which is about 2 feet. So we've got our widths set up here. That was supposed to be 20. There we go. Now, if I'm going to be playing around with this unit in the future, given that this is a standard door width, I might want to lock this clicking the little lock button here, and that will mean that if I change the overall size in the object info palette, the door won't change size, only the windows on either side will change size. Alright, so let's now choose what we want to have in each of these three openings. On the left here, maybe we'll choose a fixed sash, then fixed sash, then we'll choose just off the bottom here, let me just scroll down, a hinged left door, and on the right hand side maybe a double hung window there. Now if I want to have a threshold here, I can leave this on yes. If I set this to no, you'll see that the door will drop down a little bit and we'll lose that threshold. Let's leave that set at yes. And we've set this standard door height here to 2040, and we're pretty well good to go. Now one of the things I will mention here with WinDoor is that we encourage you to not use the flipping in the object info palette, and we have this control here called flipped rotated, and you should always aim to have this on no and no, and you would click the flip button here to achieve that. And by having this set to no and no, you can then choose the either hinge left or hinge right or whatever. You'll see there's left and right of all of these doors here, and you can also then choose whether the door opens in or out. Now the reason that we encourage this is that then when you do a schedule, you can correctly get the handing of the doors, and you can set the setbacks correctly in the frame and so on in relation to the walls. So let's go ahead and click OK and see what happens here with our unit, and you can see there that it kind of worked out as expected. Now let's say I wanted to put a some windows above the door. Let's go back in there again. I'll double click this, and this time we're going to add the height divisions, add to the height divisions. Let's set that to 2, and the top one here, let's set that at about 300, which is about a foot. And you can see now that we've got these 3 divisions up here, and I can choose what I want to put in them. And let's say I put awning hung in there, and I actually wanted awning hung in all of the sash openings. I can use this match all sash types to top left here, and you'll see when I click that all of the units have become awning hung. Now I probably don't actually want that, so let's go back and set this to say fixed glass, and that can be an awning hung. We'll set this to fixed glass, and we'll set this one back to double hung, and this one back to double hung as well. And now given that I've nominated this as a standard door height, about 6'8", I'm going to also lock that one there, so that if I change the overall size of the unit, then it will the door will remain the same size. Now notice I've got these 3 little lock buttons here as well. Now when you change the overall height of a unit, sometimes depending on your settings in the object info palette, you'll see here the elevation can be set at the sill of the frame or the head of the frame. Now currently we have this set at the sill of the frame, so when I click OK, the top of the unit is going to get higher. But every now and then with a window, for example, you may want to fix the head height even though you've specified this as at the sill of the frame. So by clicking on these various buttons here, you can control which part of the unit will remain fixed within the wall when you click OK. And if this is set to sill, then by default this will be set to the bottom option here. If this one is set to head of frame, then by default it will be set to the top up here. So you don't actually have to do anything with these, but it does give you the option when you have changed the height of a unit to set which part of it is going to be fixed, and the elevation here is going to adjust accordingly. So let's go ahead and click OK. If we just get that to refresh, okay, that's looking better now. Click OK, and there we've got our unit. Now just to demonstrate, remember we locked the door, the height and width of the door, so If I select this unit and now I come in here and change the overall width, let's reduce this to say 1800, it's about 6 feet, and I hit enter, you'll see that the door itself didn't change size, but the windows on either side did. Likewise, if I increase the height to say 2700, about 9 feet, and hit enter, you'll notice that the door didn't change height either, but the window above did. So that's what those lock buttons, this lock button here and this lock button here, allowed us to do. Now, one other thing I'll show you when we're in here is that we can control the number of doors. So if I set this to 2, then we'll get a pair of doors in this opening here. Now this is obviously some of these controls are repeated elsewhere in the object info palette, and also for this it's in another dialog as well. But given that you're trying to lay out the unit in this dialog, we've repeated these here to make it easier to kind of get the end result more quickly. So we'll click OK, and we're pretty happy with that result. So let's now talk about using the maximum sash width control and also merging of sashes. We'll switch back to our layer. That has some units on it, and we'll use this one again. Let's double click the unit and open the dialog. Now the first one, let's talk about the maximum sash width. And I'm going to reduce this width to 2. And then I'm going to maybe set this one to, we'll leave that one at 820, because say we want a door there, and on this one we want this to be, let's say, 3 meters. Now we have this super wide door here, and actually we'll get rid of this as well, make it the height divisions 1, and let's set this to a standard door height, and we want the door to be here, so we'll set that to a hinge left door. Alright, now over here we want to put some windows, and watch what happens when I set it to, say, a double hung window. You'll see that this is set to 3 meters, and this has been divided into three units. And the reason for this is that had we had one giant double hung window in here, it would have exceeded the width that was specified here. So by altering this number, you can control how many subdivisions there are within one grid opening. So if I set this to a more realistic, say 900 or about 3 feet, you'll see that this will actually change now, and we've got 4 sashes in there. So you can use this to your advantage by, it means you don't have to set up multiple width divisions to get something like this. Now if we go and add some more height to this, and let's just adjust that to say 500. If I set this to fixed glass, you'll see that we only get one wide opening there, and that's because in the form dialog, in the geometry dialog, you can actually nominate whether or not the maximum sash width applies to fixed glass and whether it applies to a fixed sash. You'll see here if I set this to fixed sash, again we're just getting one big sash over here. But if we accept that, let's click OK, and we're a bit wide there, but never mind. And let's now look in the geometry dialog under sashes. You'll see here also apply maximum sash width to fixed glass, fixed sashes and louver vents. So if we turn that on for fixed sash, then click OK, you'll see that we now get the divisions up the top there for fixed sashes as well. So this way, if I set this back down to 2000, then this is going to adjust accordingly so that we're compliant with this number here. So this way you can kind of fill out a large areas of glazing with subdivisions and not have to worry about creating multiple width divisions. You just change this number here and you're good to go. Now, as far as merging cells or merging sashes is concerned, let's change this configuration again. Let's set it to a 3 by 3 and we'll set this to equal width and height divisions, and I'll set this to an awning hung window. Then I'll click match all sash types, and that door there, let's just also set that to awning hung. Okay. Now you can see that the maximum sash width is kicking in here because each of these is 926, this is 900, so that number has been exceeded, and so we're getting doubles in each of these cells. So if I was to change this to a number greater than 926, say 930, you'll see that that won't happen anymore. Now, what I'm actually wanting to demonstrate here is the ability to merge down or fill, extend down as we call it. It's just off the bottom of the screen. If I choose extend down here, this is now says extend down, you'll see that these two openings here have been merged into one. If I was to do the same for this center one here, which is this one here, let's choose extend down, and that way I can merge those two, and if I chose extend down up here, then those two will get merged. If I then extend down again, then these three will get merged. So that way you can kind of divide up the sashes into a more interesting configuration. Again, if I set this back to 900, you'll see that we'll get doubles of those in all of these openings as well. So let's now take a look at the custom head feature in the form dialog. Again, we'll switch to a layer with some WinDoor units on it and select this one at the end, and let's edit the head on this window, and we'll go through the options. So we can have curved heads, semicircular, sloping, and gable. Let's start with curved, and nothing will appear until a legal radius is in here. So let's say we put in a radius of 3 meters, and we'll put an even spring on each side, say 100 on each side. Maybe we'll reduce that down to 2 meters. Okay, so you can see this is kind of giving you the feedback you need while you're entering these numbers, and these springs can be an uneven values. If you had two units that were close to each other in a wall that were wanting to give the impression of a continuous head. Now this second option here, create mullions and transom, so this controls whether if the unit has been divided into two, then whether or not the mullion will continue up through the head and also the transom, which is this member here. So if we say do not create mullions, you'll see that there's now no vertical division up here in this head, and in that scenario you could consider putting in a fixed sash. Obviously an awning hung or hopper are not going to work too well in that sense or in that position. And you also have the option not to create a transom. This would only be applicable in certain situations where you just had probably fixed glass, and the third option is to not create either of those, but the most common one is to not create the mullions. Okay, so let's now look at semicircular. Now when you choose that, the radius will automatically be populated with half of the width here. So really the only thing that you then have to adjust is whether or not you want to have any spring height, in other words any straight part before it starts to curve, and if you don't, then altering either of the spring heights will alter the other one. And again, we can drop out that mullion if you don't want that going up, and we can add a fixed sash if desired. Alright, so the next one is the sloping, and again we need to enter some values here before it's going to do anything. Now sloping up from left, let's put in 100 on the left here. So when it's sloping up from left as opposed to sloping from right, then this value here will drive the height on the left hand side here, and whatever this increases by, it will also increase the right spring by. So increasing the left spring when it's sloping from left won't alter the angle. So if I make this 200, you'll see that this one just increases by 100. So the angle is maintained. Now if I alter the spring height, then it will alter the angle. If I alter the angle, then it will alter the right spring height. So let's go ahead and maybe put that in at 600, and you'll see that that changed from 20 degrees to 14.38. If I then set that to 15, then this value here is going to alter. Now if we do it the other way around, then set this one to say 100, then this one is not going to alter the angle, and these two, the spring left and the slope, are now the two that are linked together. So if I increase this to 16, then this is going to go up. If I increase this one to 200, then it's just going to push that head up there and maintain the angle. Again, the mullions options are there, and you can put a sash in there. The final one is a gable, and that's fairly self-explanatory. The two springs will be the same, so if I change this one to 200, the other one will change, so they're locked together, and obviously the angle is going to affect both sides. Again, I can drop out the mullion if desired and put in a fixed sash. So that pretty well covers the custom head options. So the final segment of our form dialog video tutorial is on filler walls. We call them filler walls, but actually in the form dialog they're called parent walls. And essentially what we're trying to do is to allow the wall that the door or window is put into to actually come in and take out part of the actual opening. So for example, in this unit here, we might want to have the wall continue under the window on either side of the opening. So let's have a look at how we can do that. So here we have the unit, and it has two vertical divisions. So in order to do this, you have to have two vertical divisions and at least two width divisions. So two height divisions and at least two width divisions. And we've got this one here is an extend down, and this option at the bottom, the hinge left, is what is creating the doors here. So what we want to do is to put in a wall here and a wall there. Now in the early days of WinDoor, before we could create wall holes in Vectorworks, we had an option right down the bottom here called filler walls, and that would actually create a wall within the WinDoor object and put it in there. Well, that's kind of the old way of doing it. We now have a thing called parent wall, and you'll see here, you can see it there, parent wall. So the filler wall was the old one. The one that you want to use now is parent wall. And you'll see when I've chosen that, then this window has disappeared from here. And let's do the same here. We'll go right down the bottom and choose parent wall, and that just means that whatever was going in here is now going to be taken by the wall that this object is inserted into. And these heights are obviously going to drive this the height of this, or the position of these sills here. Let's just go ahead and click OK now, and you'll see that we get exactly the desired result, because the wall is now continuing under the window on both sides. Now let's just take a quick look at that again. You'll recall the maximum sash width functionality. So if I set this to say 1200 on one side, and then we set this to something like 800, then we're going to get two windows on one side, then the door, and then the window on the other side. So that that sash, maximum sash thing is going to work in all cases. Now I just also wanted to show the sill situation for this, and for setting sills we do that in the geometry. So let's just take a look at that, and we'll go with a sloping face sill, and we'll put sill plus joints for 2D, and we'll have the sill in 3D. Now the reason I wanted to show this is to demonstrate this draw 3D lower sill for when filler walls are in use. So what this will do, if this option is checked here, then we'll also get a sill under the door. If we don't check that option, then we'll only get a sill under the window. So let's leave that unchecked for the moment, click OK, and you'll see that we'll get sills there on those upper windows, but we won't get them on the one down the bottom. If we go in there, not that dialog, if we go into the geometry dialog and check that box, click OK, then you'll see that we'll also get the sill down there. Obviously the wall would have to be a bit lower for that to work properly. So that's how filler walls work, and of course the texture, if you have a texture on the wall or whatever, it's just going to flow through there and you're not going to have any alignment issues like we used to have with the old filler walls.